Now, as fears over a looming energy crisis continues to grip Europe, the Scandinavian nation of Denmark has now issued its first level early warning alert over worries of its gas supplies. The warning is part of an EU system that allows members of the bloc to flag impending energy supply difficulties using 3 ascending levels of alerts. It starts with early warning, followed by alert, and finally emergency. The announcement came after Danish energy company Austria announced last month that delivery of Russian gas would be suspended from the 1st of June. This after Ørsted refused to settle payment in Russian rubles. Currently, Denmark's gas stocks, they're at about 75% full. Meanwhile, Netherlands has become the latest country to lift restrictions on coal plants. The Dutch government has said that it would activate the early warning phase of an energy crisis plan and will remove the cap on coal-fired power plants. The move comes as EU nations now continue to search for alternative sources of gas supplies as Russia continues to slash supplies to the region. Germany and Austria, they were the first 2 nations to remove such restrictions on its power facilities. Austrian authorities, they've now decided to get the coal-powered station in the southern city of Malak back in action. The plant was closed back in 2020 as the government phased out non-renewable sources of energy in a bid to move to 100% renewables. The decision to return to coal-powered power station came after Russian gas giant Gazprom sharply reduced flows of natural gas via the Nord Stream pipeline to Western Europe, driving up energy prices here. Now, Germany is also following the similar lines to resume electricity production from coal. Berlin's decision marks a turnaround by the ruling coalition of Social Democrats, Greens, the Liberal FDP, which has vowed to curtail the country's coal usage by 2030. Italy, meanwhile, is also set to hold a technical committee meet later today to discuss a course of action to reduce Russian oil dependency. Interestingly, the responses from the West to the global energy crisis have brought for the dichotomy that it now faces as far as climate pledges are concerned. Last month, the group of 7 nations announced that they would no longer fund fossil fuel development overseas. But as the crisis hit home, majority of the nations, they've started to defy their own climate protocols. Production of hard coal in the EU, it has decreased almost continuously from the 1990. In 2021, the EU production was 57 million tons. That is 79% less than the figures from 1990s. But with this shift to coal as an alternate means to generate power, the initial plan by the EU to be carbon neutral by 2050, it is likely to face hurdles. And for more on this, we're being joined by Katira Petagora, an international affairs expert from London. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. My first question to you is, Denmark has declared an alert over gas supply worries, like I just mentioned. How do you think EU will react to this, as Russian gas cuts are now a real concern?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing how the EU's reacting. It's placing foreign policy interests, namely sanctioning Russia. It's above every other policy area. It's subjugating whether it's climate policy, economy, energy, immigration, all in the service of foreign policy. So they're really sacrificing a lot in order to carry out these foreign policy agenda. And part of that is going back to coal-fired power plants and breaking climate pledges.
Right now, EU has urged developing nations to cut their carbon footprint, switch to non-renewable sources of energy. That was their plan as well. At a time when Europe is now facing the heat of the crisis, we see this sudden shift in policies. What's your take on this?
Yes, well, I mean, what you're seeing is that basically, in countries that professed to claimed so much that they cared about climate change and had in the past lectured countries like India, now they're actually going back on these pledges in the service of foreign policy interests. And it was entirely predictable if they were going to sanction Russia, that Russia would respond in this way. So they can't really claim that they didn't expect this. And, you're seeing they're going to have to hopefully make changes in other ways. Perhaps they could reduce meat consumption, which is one of the biggest causes of climate change as well. So they're going to really have to think outside the box if they're going to try and claim to be the leaders in climate action whilst at the same time maintaining this foreign policy position.
Absolutely, and in fact, I was just going to come to that. Just to elaborate on this further, how do you think this return to coal as an alternate means to Russian oil will affect European Union's climate goals?
Yeah, it's going to severely harm their climate goals. Coal is much worse when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions. It's going to, create more demand for coal globally as well, which would also drive up the price, which would create, more incentives for, coal mining in various countries. So it will have some structural effects that might last beyond the sanctions and beyond this particular geopolitical issue that could have, negative impacts for the planet for a long time to come.
Right. Well, Mr. Pathagora, thank you so much for joining us with your analysis. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.